What's popular YouTube? Another day, another demo. Under the heat lamp today is Perfecto Mundo. Okay, we've got a few things to talk about. This is about the ESL Pro League Season 12 finals that we just watched. We just did the video on Train of S-Attack's performance on CT side and talked about how he carried them through the CT side, and that was part of the reason they were able to win. If they lost any map at that point, they were already down off the first map. Navi would have picked up the series. They had a map advantage. And if Navi had closed out Nuke, which was the second map with a map advantage and a map under their belt, they would have won. And this is the story about how Perfecto has been getting heat on Navi for his poorer stats, but was the only player on the T side that Navi totally threw that allowed them to have any semblance of hope in the series. Okay, they completely threw away their T side on Nuke. And this is going to be an argument for Perfecto, basically. So this, titling this video, Perfecto was not the problem here. And I'm going to point to a couple things. And I would like to be consistent, okay? I would like to be consistent and say that when I've looked at stats in the past, I've looked at, Kerrigan and Chris J and seen the sea of red and said, with stats this low at a certain point, you have to say that this is the reason your team cannot break into the top 5. That the stats don't tell the full story, but they definitely lead you in the right direction. And the red that's dictated, the red that's shown on HLTV is you in contrast to your competition. And if you're poor in those categories, then you're almost certainly losing trades that are important. And we have to remember that this is a point-and-click adventure. You can be the smartest team in the world, but if you cannot hit your shots, you will lose matches. And there is nobody on Astralis, there's nobody on Peak Fnatic. There's nobody on top 5 teams who can have multiple players with stats that are just red across the board. People have to be pretty consistent across 5 players to compete at this level. We're talking about Navi. This is a world-beating roster and one that we need to, look at and be critical of every single member of the team. But I think Perfecto is a smart player. I would like to first point attention to this. This might recuse him of some of the scrutiny that he's gotten, okay? So with a lot of players, you look at their featured ratings here versus teams and of different calibers. So here it's the top 5 opponents, top 10 opponents, top 20 opponents, top 30, top 50. Most players dip down, their ratings go up, the lower the tier of opponent that they're facing. That's pretty normal. Perfecto is relatively consistent. In fact, has a slightly better rating versus top 5 teams than any other opponents. That, to me, is an example of why he might be better than he appears and why the stats might not be telling the full story, at least the more specific ones about ADR, impact, and so forth. We know Perfecto was key at Katowice for his clutches. And once everything went online, of course, it was just bad for Navi as a whole. But in some of these important matches, and specifically here on Nuke, all right, Perfecto, this was bigger than frags. Okay, we're looking at Perfecto here on Nuke, and on both sides he had 67 ADR. I'm going to argue that he was the only good player of this map because of this T side. CT side's fine. They all actually had a great CT side. And if we look at Perfecto CT side specifically, he only had 49 ADR, but he also only went 5 and 6. He had the least deaths on the whole server. He was an upper anchor, and he played and just didn't take that many fights. It just, 5 of 6, right? Everyone else, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 deaths. And, he's basically just didn't have to do that much. He didn't have an amazing CT side, but he certainly wasn't offered up a ton of duels. So for the CT side, they ended 9-6. And on T side, he was 14 and 12 with 86 ADR. But not only this, okay, he, in some of these very key rounds as we're about to watch, was the only person to make a fucking play. And to me, this was an IGL loss from Navi. More than anything else, this was an issue of Boomich or Blade or whoever was making the mid-round calls. This is a situation where on T side, Navi were doing a decent job at the beginning of rounds on some of these rounds, and then would fall completely silent in the mid-round, appear not to have any plan, not have any tactics to take to further progress their map control or force a rotation from Astralis, but instead would sit dead silent, wait for something to happen, watch somebody die, and then run into the lower bomb site and lose the round, or run into the upper bomb site and lose the round. It was an IGL loss, in my opinion, that lost Navi this entire series. The T sides were really bad, except for the last map, and both teams tried their hand at throwing the T side of Train. But we first saw elements of this on Nuke, and on Nuke, it was 13-9, and I said, like, I tweeted out, Navi are playing like they're losing. They were winning 13-9, and I tweeted out that they were playing like they're losing, and we could use a tempo change. It seems like we could use a tempo change, and it felt like it was so frustrating, and I'm sure for a lot of people who are watching, to see Navi, with players that they have, do nothing in the middle of rounds, right? To sit around and wait, to not have a clear direction for how to progress the round in the default, to not take aggressive map control, or commit to hitting sites properly with enough time remaining. Seeing somebody run into a site with 15 seconds left is so ugly. Like, even the team that wins the round, we're going to see Navi actually call a pause after winning a round where they ran down lower with 15 seconds left. They know themselves that that is not a clean round and not a sustainable solution for winning the game. That there was an issue, some kind of IGL fogginess, a lack of direction, a lack of leadership. That cost some things. Now, I will say one more thing. My implicit bias this game, something I want to note. We all have implicit biases when we watch games as viewers, as commentators. My implicit bias, like I wasn't like heavily leaning towards Navi. Neither of these teams are like my favorite teams or whatever. But I was leaning towards Navi for the storyline a little bit. I think there's a big confidence win for them. I was kind of hoping, Simple would grab this one. I wanted this for electronic. So for me, I was leaning towards Navi. And when you're leaning towards a team, you're going to see their mistakes better than anyone else, right? That's the thing that you're going to zone in on the most. And I actually don't believe that clouds your judgment. I think that really means that you ignore what the other team did well a little bit more, but you are able to see what the team you were rooting for did wrong a lot. And I noticed like a lot of the mistakes, like, come on, why aren't you doing this? Like, move it along. And so I would like to, point that out. I'm a little bit more imbued with passion about this match in favor, of telling this kind of negative storyline about Navi because I was leaning towards them. I really wanted this for them. So why don't we go ahead and jump into the match, and we'll see that basically every important kill that happens here in this matchup in the second half was because of Perfecto, which is completely insane. Now, Perfecto is one of the best clutch players on the team. He's Zipix, Esatag, etc. You know what I mean? Like he should not be out there as the farthest piece in every single round looking for map control and information. He should be probably the guy. I mean, he could be using an aggressive lurk, but he should be the guy who's more sitting there waiting. So here, this is actually great target selection. I want to point out before we play this clip. Perfecto, this is where Dupree gets the kill in lobby, and then someone calls for a lobby crunch. I don't know if it was him. And this is so unlike Astralis. Like, you wouldn't expect them to do something like this, but they spotted the bomb in lobby. They just killed 2, and they all just rush from ramp and lobby. And so Perfecto spots that one. And then right here, see how Perfecto goes from taking the fight in hut to thinking about his next duel. If you're going to be a professional player, honestly, if you're just going to be a good player, like, this is not really high-level stuff, but if you're going to be a good player, you can sit there like a tank and stop and a turret and stop everybody coming in from one choke point, but you're never going to go above and beyond if you're not thinking about where the next fight's coming from. And I think this is what's done really well. And here he even gets in on this other guy, and again is juggling both of these angles so well and does his job to make sure that they win the round. Some shots are missed, and to be honest, like, it's kind of like one of those madness or genius plays from Astralis where, like, they're probably favored in that lobby crunch. 5v3, bomb spotted, some information. But it's kind of like, if you lose, did you need to do that? And the answer is no, they didn't need to do that. It doesn't necessarily make it an incorrect play. In almost every situation in Counter-Strike, it's pretty much, it's impossible to be like to objectively favor one decision or another. There's just arguments in both directions. And, you know, Astralis, they almost certainly would have won 5v3. 5v4, listen, like, who knows if, you know, they feel comfortable. But 5v3, they probably were in a pretty good spot to not push like that. And it felt a bit out of character. So now they're 4 rounds down, and they're technically 2 maps down in the series. So Navi, you're 6 rounds away from winning this entire... from winning Pro League as a whole. So this is where, you know, Astralis have already messed up and handed them a free, very important round when Navi needed it the most. So now it's kind of the first signs where we're going to look at Navi, be very respectful. Okay, they're pulling out the chair. They're tucking in the napkin for Astralis. They're letting them sit down and say, okay, thank you, sir. Doing great, sir. Giving them tons of respect. Hanging back. Not wanting to get ecoed. Listen, getting ecoed is something that's very hard to avoid. I've heard people argue that if you play perfectly, you don't get ecoed. I don't think that's true. I think you could play perfectly and easily get ecoed. So there's arguments for, of course, like taking it slow. But this really felt like one of those games where you're looking at a team that believes in themselves less than you do as a viewer. Like talent-wise, strats-wise, everything. Where you're like, you can do a little bit more here. So anyways, they lock it up. 6-11. Things are looking sharp. And they got, I think Astralis recycle a couple pieces of Kevlar that's probably known to Navi. And Navi are going back to kind of outside tactics here with a set of wall smokes outside, and they're going to clear stuff out. And this is also not a very difficult round for Navi to deal with. See the cleanup, and they're going to go through with a crunch after taking outside control. And I mean, I don't have to stress how important outside control is, of course. It's pretty much everything for being able to attack a position like this for Heaven, to controlling rotations, to scaring the other team, to being able to go secret. It's everything on the T side. And I think the specific issue with Navi, the most glaring one, was simply not using the middle of the round effectively. The time between like a minute 30 after set smokes come out to like 10 seconds when you need to pick a site to execute on. So here they're moving with a little bit of conviction going downstairs. This is good. This is what we want to see. Of course, they're still down a player, and Dupree has amazing spray control to take him out. They try to enter in the site, and the trades come out, and Astralis already ready downstairs with 2 players, which is what Flamey didn't recognize. But overall, like, the pace for Navi is good. It's just they are unfortunate to lose a piece outside first. It's going to happen sometimes. Not the end of the world, though. It's still 12-7. And now here, they throw out a bit of a faster round. They don't win any of their bets, if you will. If this is a roulette table and they place a couple of bets around the roulette table, they kind of fail on all fronts. It's a bit unlucky for them. Maybe it's, you know, a fragging issue. But this is the point where now Navi are starting to doubt themselves with the pace that they wanted to set with this half. And I think this is where it starts to become a thought of how do we not lose as opposed to how do we win. And this is where, you know, Astralis can be found smelling the blood in the water, understanding that like the other team is a bit more scared now. There's a bit of a streak going on. The money's starting to build up. And the storyline, the negative narratives in your head are starting to overwhelm. They'll take it a bit slower now. And of course, taking it a bit slower is not an issue. That's not the problem. It'll be what you do with your time when you take it slow. You know, when you look at a team like Avangard, for example, a lot of people are bored by the way that they played in their defaults because they took a long time to do anything. But for me, maybe not Avangard right now because they're not playing their best, but I haven't watched them play as much. Okay, hold on. See, we've got Perfecto out front, leading the charge on the ramp. This won't be the first time that this happens. And he found a great timing where he took no damage, he stayed alive, and he's got ramp control. This is all before a minute mark. So now he's holding for rotations. And Navi, what are they doing? Well, here's what Navi could do, right? They have a player outside. What they would like to try to do is get a rotational frag. Astralis are not going to retake ramp for no reason. Why would they? When does that ever happen? They might use it as a rotational spot if they think a site is being hit, however. So, for example, if they really need to connect S-Attack and whoever's in Turnpike, then they might need, and they feel like they can't go outside, then they might need to come through ramp and try to clean it out. That would be a good way to funnel people into the ramp. In this situation, we see that Electronic's outside, crossing red by himself, but nobody's smoking outside to actually make it seem like multiple players could be crossing. And in fact, we know that Astralis are going to be concerned about this because they lost ramp, so they're holding on to something. But what actually happens here for Navi? The time bleeds down. Look at the minimap. What are we spotting? They're expecting Astralis to make some kind of enormous mistake, right? I mean, no one's going to come back up the ramp without information. Device isn't going to peek Turnpike for no reason as well. S-Tag is camping down lower. We already know that. There's a chance that they have taken the vents to get a second player down lower. They don't know where the rest are. So from here, 20 seconds left, they just run into the site. And again, this is where they don't even block control off. There's two in here, and Perfecto is the reason they can even plant. They would have literally lost 2 frags there, not had control smoked out, and the double lower setup would have worked out beautifully. This still comes down to a 3v3, but this is Navi allowing themselves to win. But they never got that kill that they needed. So this is already a bit of a sketchy round. No, it's not a weird round, right? Like, you might do this, but when it's sketchy is when you wait until the very final seconds, when there's like 10 seconds left and you're running into the site, that you don't leave yourself enough room to make mistakes and still win. And it comes down to the 1v1. Perfecto closes out 4 kills on the round and a 13th here for Navi. So you saw Perfecto's impact on the pistol round that they won, anti-ecos or whatever, and now the kind of first rifle round that they're able to pick up after losing. But there's a T timeout called because, I mean, I don't know why it's called, but I'm going to assume that it has something to do with a lack of direction in that mid round, not using their time incredibly efficiently, and wondering, like, is that a sustainable solution for how we can figure out the rest of this half? Like, what can we do now? So we go back into a bit of a default. There's pressure on Squeaky, and these are parts of the default that are important. If you're absolutely doing nothing, you won't bake grenades out, you won't give yourself any late round outs, you will not be able to take a site without running into Molotov. So you have to do things like pressure Squeaky, to throw small fakes, to throw outside smokes, and so on. But to me, the outside pressure is lacking dramatically here. I think this would be the easiest, it's not the only one, but I think it would be the easiest solution for Navi to have spent some more of these rounds in their default where they're crowded up, sitting inside of lobby, waiting around for I don't know what to happen, when they could have been putting a little bit of pressure on the side, allowing Electronic to lurk by himself. But instead, they're trying to utilize him as a rifler to go on an incognito mission into secret with no pressure anywhere else. What is the expected outcome, right? It's one of those situations where if they win the round, did they even deserve it? Did they even deserve it if they win the round like that? All the eggs are in the basket of Electronic to find a gap timing, to like cross outside, to get a lurk frag. There's so much like luck involved, and there's not anything to help him find that timing. There's no it's like pretty much quiet inside. And so you wonder what the communication is like. And this is where things are already a little bit sketchy. You can be up in rounds 13-10, but you can still feel like you're losing. And from the outside, that's what it feels like Navi were experiencing at this point. So the eco doesn't go so hot. And I think we have him supporting for a Squeaky burst, which, I mean, that's good. They're, you know, trying something else besides their kind of slower default. Some of their fast rounds haven't gone so hot. And this one actually kind of comes close, and I think it's once again only because of Perfecto. So players out squeaky, 3-for-1 trade is not very good. Doesn't mean the play is bad. I actually think, you know, that could have been nice to take some of the edge off, maybe if they're a bit nervous or uncomfortable, to try to do something fast and see if they can get a nice confidence round going. And here it's in the 2v2, but Glaive was super solid upstairs. And that allows, you know, it to become a 12th, and then, of course, it gets a bit scarier as Navi have to now save. And I'm just going to go ahead and skip through this. They get melted again. Minimal losses for Astralis. I think the reason that, you know, even though they're eco rounds, the reason that they feel so much worse when you just have pistols and you get, like, demolished and you don't get any kills is because you know that all these retained guns are going to haunt you in future rounds. So here's a round where Perfecto makes an enormous play. This is one of the only rounds we're seeing them take this forward aggressive map control outside with smokes, and Perfecto is the one doing all of the work, all of the lurk. Here he even catches out another player as he's spotting the edge of the smoke, even though Mini gets smoked in front of him. Rages is fading. Perfect headshot accuracy with low HP. Had to hit that shot instantly. And that just allows Navi to get into the round. And this brings them here to 14. And now Navi, again, you think, okay, they're in a pretty good position. It took Perfecto to bring the entire game into his hands in each of these rounds by being the only player who's willing to be aggressive enough to try to find an opening in the default, either at ramp, either on the pistol, either on, like, these outside lurks. And so they go back to sending him outside. That's good. Then Glaive finds a position they don't clear. He was actually blind there and sitting. And then gets that frag, basically. And we already know so far that Perfecto, again, is the only one who has been really making movements. Look at the time bleed down. Lower here is being lurked upon. But Astralis have still Molotovs at ramp at 25 seconds. They haven't done a good enough job baiting out the utility. And now actually have to fall back into a save. And it's just this question of, you know, could leadership have done more? Of course, I'm working on incomplete information. This is just, you know, what I saw. This is what I saw. And this is a round where actually, so here's another example. Perfecto makes an opening play aggressive, takes ramp control way above a minute. Way above a minute. He's even brought Simple in. He's like, yo, check out this spot I found. It's early. Nobody's home. Let's take it over. Great. We saw Perfecto in this exact position before. He boosts Simple up, and this is where Sponge is kind of emphatically explaining that this is a huge play and this could result in a lot. The reason that it doesn't is we just saw a round like this where Electronic was outside, Mr. Blue on the radar, and nobody was helping him to cause enough presence outside that a rotation would come. They once again wait and hope that Astralis makes some enormous mistake for absolutely no reason. Asatag is tucked downstairs. Device, we know he's probably around there, around that wall, just tucked in, opping. 50 seconds left. What is the mistake that Astralis are going to make that they haven't made before that has now resulted in them getting to 14-14? 40 seconds here. And as long as we don't cross that kind of 20-second mark, we get downstairs, it's not too terrible. But look, Astralis have save utility. Perfecto comes through that smoke to try to fight, but there's already two in position downstairs. And another situation where they don't get their nades off safely on lower because they didn't make a decision early enough. This is actually a perfectly normal round, and they executed a little bit earlier. But if they had worked lower, made a decision, were a bit more directive about how they were going to attack downstairs, they could have actually worked the lower site with nades properly. They were missing having someone flank outside or like get down secret, but they kind of decided to not really help make that possible with Electronic. They have him like kind of lurking, not really helping him with nades, just hoping again he finds a timing. And so if they're going to do that, they have to put in a bit more effort on the ramp to like get the nades out downstairs. But it's open lines of sight from control once again. It's a dream for Astralis, really. They have enough utility to stop it. They have players in place and control windows, not smoked or mollied. So now we have smokes outside, and it's not a great buy. Just a tiny fake, and they're going to try to speed this round up once again because you can't really work a default that well when you're low on grenades. So look for some trades. Perfecto will find 2, actually. That opens up lines on Squeaky to allow them to get out. Has to tag lurks into an awkward position. And this is where Device actually clutches from Mini. And people look at this and he clutched for the 1v2. This half was so much more than that. This half had so much more to do, I think, with what they were planning on this T side. And Device plays it well and, grabs that frag and wins the game for them. But the story goes deeper for me, and I found that really interesting. And I hope that wasn't too harsh. This is just how I see it as someone who was kind of looking for reason, like wanting to see like Navi do well in the series, wanting to not see them throw away a T half that way when they had such a good CT side, and seeing like it just seems crazy to have like a T side like that. That wasn't just Nuke specific, right? This is a T side that bled over into Train as well, and it had a lot to do with these empty mid rounds. And yeah, and I just wanted to say, Perfecto, I really think he gets a lot of heat, and maybe his stats could come up a little bit, but he absolutely was not the problem in this series. From my perspective, he plays well versus top teams. I think this is a matter of a little bit of the direction. I think Navi definitely have the talent to be the top 1 team in the world. I mean, no question. I like Boomich as an IGL, especially on CT side, but it feels like right now it's the T sides that are the big issue. So yeah, I hope you like that one. It's pretty kind of like very into it the whole time. And I've rearranged things. So we've got ads on. I've got ads back on. Everyone was so nice in the comments and like, just, turn ads on. Of course, you can still use ad block. If you want to support, you can whitelist the channel to watch ads or whatever. If you want to use ad block, you're free to use ad block, of course. And if you... and I also added a demo review plus like full lesson tier to the Patreon. So it's $100, and it would basically be a personal Coach Lau video where I record like this. It'd be like standing up, talking, watching the game. I'll study the demo first and then watch it back and do a Coach Lau video privately for you. And then at the end of the demo review, I will get into the game, which is something I don't do for these videos, and show you specific things like nades that you should use specifically for the way you're playing, because you can go and find nade lineups, but things that you might not be doing that would be good for you. Positions, crosshair placement, angles that are nice that you might not be using, rotations, and answer questions that you have. Any questions that you have, I can answer during the downtime. I'd recommend picking a demo that a demo where you made good guesses about, what was happening, but you still couldn't figure out the solutions. Those are ones that I can really go ham on. A game where you just kind of like, you felt into it, or, you want a demo specifically just to figure out like your individual skill, your mechanics. I can try to pick apart your mechanics a little bit and help you with that. I can do all levels. I've done a demo review for a player that was like silver, and now he's an MDL. Shout out to Dolphy. He came through and told me that on Twitter. And yeah, we used to do a lot of demo reviews on the YouTube channel, but that is something that, yeah, I think I can do. I can only do so many a month, so that's the reason for the price, and that, you know, the effort is going to be there. So it's up to anyone if they want to kind of like to take on or to order a demo review or Coach Lau video. But apart from that, yeah, ads are back on. Thank you guys so much for the support. Appreciate everybody who dings a follow bell. Average view duration has gone up for like crazy for these last few videos. So I feel like the energy is really good, and it's been fun to record videos like this. I'm really, again, really sad that I'll have to record some videos where I won't be able to put together like such a nice kind of narrative before we begin the demo every single time. So excuse me if some of the videos when I'm either casting or traveling are not quite up to the same level as this, but I'll do my best to make sure like they've all got like, you know, they're all interesting for some reason or another. So yeah, appreciate y'all, and I'll see you back here for another Coach Lau.